Welcome to the Augusta Golf Show podcast. Now, here's John Patrick.
Notah Begay III played his college golf at Stanford, won 4 times on the PGA Tour. He now covers the game for Golf Channel and NBC and was recently named the 2026 recipient of the Payne Stewart Award. It really is a pleasure to welcome Notah Begay III to the Augusta Golf Show for the very first time. How are you, Notah?
Well, I'm overwhelmed. I'm excited. I'm humbled and honored. All rolled into one. I can't believe the designation of being the Payne Stewart Award recipient, but I'm certainly trying to take it all in stride.
You looked very surprised when they gave it to you.
That's an understatement. I was shocked. I was really shocked. I've always believed in what the Payne Stewart Award stood for, just in how I approached my nonprofit work and my relationships with the communities that we work with and the kids we serve. And I just never thought that it would ever be sort of something that was possible. That I always felt like that was, something for like big nonprofits. We're not the biggest nonprofit, but we make a huge impact. And so when Aaron Stewart handed me that trophy, I was in utter disbelief, but it was a good kind of disbelief, and I'm happy that it happened.
Are you a good award getter, Notah? Some people are not.
I'd like to say I'm good at receiving attention and awards.
Okay.
And, but it's not the finish line. I think that's the critical part to remember here. This is just an acknowledgement that the work that we're doing at the MB3 Foundation, where we work with primarily Native American youth across the United States, that we're doing a good job. The Stewart Family Foundation, they do a thorough job of examining, who these recipients should be and sort of the operating philosophies of the organizations. And so this isn't something that sort of they pick a name out of a hat. It's a very thorough vetting process. And, like I said, I'm really lucky that we were able to pass all of those tests and eventually end up being the award winner, which we will definitely use to push forward our message.
You're old enough. Did you ever get the chance to meet Payne?
Absolutely. That was my rookie year on tour. I actually got to play 2 rounds of golf with him. I think it was at the Disney Classic in Orlando. And, it's something that I've included in my speech, my acceptance speech, which will take place on August 25th in Atlanta. It was neat. At the time, you didn't know that.
Sure.
That he wasn't going to live, till the end of the year. With the tragic death that he experienced. And so I was just trying to take as much as I could in. One of my philosophies that I approached my rookie year with was that I wanted to play as many practice rounds with veterans, and I wanted to learn as much as I could from those that had sort of come before me. And Payne was one of those guys. He was a major championship winner. He played well in the Ryder Cup. He sort of performed his best in the biggest moments, and that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to emulate. So I was all ears, and I was very observant, and he was great to me. And now to sort of perpetuate his legacy through nonprofit work is truly an honor.
You mentioned the NB3 Foundation. Talk to me about the purpose and the goals of the foundation.
Well, it's basically to equip young Native American kids with an opportunity to sort of believe in who they are, where they come from, and that there is opportunities out there for them to succeed in life. We provide pathways through education, health, mental well-being, as well as sports activities. Kind of sports is the catalyst for our work. We use a lot of sort of data-driven evaluation in terms of surveys and collecting information from our kids about just the types of things that are facing them and how we can help them sort of deal with life's challenges. All the kids in our country, in the United States, are battling something. And we have some major health challenges for every kid in America. And that really predisposes them. It sort of puts them behind the mark in terms of a lifetime of healthy living. And so we're just trying to get out ahead of it a little bit. And we do it based upon on data and community feedback. So we want to be an organization that listens. And that's really sort of how we've been so successful, I think, in creating programs that make an impact.
We're talking with Notah Begay III here on the Augusta Golf Show. When Notah, in your life, did you decide you were going to give back?
Well, that's an interesting story because it happened my senior year in high school, which was very early. I hadn't really achieved a whole lot. I mean, I guess I had, I was a highly ranked junior golfer, and I had gotten a full scholarship to Stanford, which obviously in the golf world is a big achievement. But in the context of, broader sports community, I was an unknown. But there was a small school that had about 15 graduates in its senior class, a Navajo community about 30 minutes outside of Albuquerque called Tohajali. They were on the reservation. And they had a vote on who they wanted their commencement speaker to be, and they voted for me. The funny thing was, I was 17 years old. I was in the same boat as these kids in terms of, slightly different, of course, but I felt like I was dealing with the same life situations as they were in terms of I was uncertain about myself. I was the only Native American in golf. I was going to a school that was, highly acclaimed academically. I had just as many questions about life as they did. So as I'm driving out there to deliver this commencement speech to these kids that are my age, I kind of knew that things were going to be different for me. And if I continued on this path of golf and achievement through golf, I felt like I was going to have a chance to carry a message to a broader audience. And, that was in 1990. So we're looking at, 25, 26 years, 30, 35 years later.
Yeah.
I'm still driving to speeches, hoping to carry a message, which I think is pretty cool.
How did you get introduced to the game?
It was surely by accident. My father worked at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which was a federal branch, a branch of the federal government that was kind of in charge of overseeing a lot of the administrative affairs of tribal nations within their region. And he played Division I basketball, and like all of us, at some point, you can't run down the court anymore. Two knee surgeries later and some sprained ankles, these guys that, were running up and down the court at 25, at 35, it becomes a lot harder. And so him and all his buddies from the BIA they transitioned to golf. So they play a 9-hole league every Thursday afternoon, and I came to the realization that I think it was just a sort of de facto excuse to drink beer on the mesa after the round, which is where I found myself doing homework every Thursday night in the cab of our truck. But that was how I got introduced to golf, and they were probably the worst collection of golfers I've ever been around. Nobody knew anything about mechanics. Nobody knew anything about Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, Gene Sarazen, Arnold Palmer. They just knew that it was an activity. They could be outside and required a little bit of hand-eye coordination, which they had. But it was just it was its own sort of movie, Caddyshack movie, kind of Native American style.
Do they love the game? What access? What kind of access do Native Americans have to the game?
Now more, excuse me. Now more than ever. There's over 70 Native American-owned properties, mostly on destination resorts across the country, and so there's a handful of really strong programs. Obviously, we have one here through our foundation. But there's more access than there's ever been. It's just trying to create the interest level that is kind of the next step kind of in our evolution of just trying to show kids that they don't have to be professional golfers or play collegiate golf. There are other careers and avenues and pathways through the industry with golf as part of your life. So that's kind of been this next stage. You know, we've been partnered with the PGA of America. The USGA has been a great supporter. And so just continually trying to showcase and introduce the entire golf industry to these young kids, I think is an important priority for us moving forward.
You know, proof that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I've read where your dad also gave back, starting a soccer program when he knew nothing about soccer.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was funny. My father, his office was in downtown Albuquerque, and worked with a lot of people that he sort of grew up with on the reservation. They ended up kind of in the same building downtown. It's on 5th and Gold Street down there. And he just started to, you know, all of them had kids that were my age, and he's like, you know, what are your kids doing? Oh, nothing. And so he's like, well, let's get him into soccer. That seems to be like real popular right now. It's growing, and he literally learned soccer. He bought a deck of coaching cards at probably the equivalent of Dick's Sporting Goods back, you know, in the early 80s. And he would run the drills off of the coaching card. And the first year I don't think we won a game. We just went out and got hammered by every single team out there. But after a couple years, we had 3 or 4 teams in the club. The team was called the Chuska Warriors, and the Chuska Mountains on the Navajo Reservation is a sacred mountain range for the Navajo community. So there was always ties to our culture and our history, which is even part of what we do now. The NB3 Foundation logo has 4 arrows pointing in all 4 directions, because I always felt like it was important for me to represent tribes and people from all parts of our communities in whatever capacity I could.
What can we do to learn more about the Native American experience?
Well, I think there's some really neat books out there. There's a book that's called The Real All-Americans that talks about the final transition of the last holdouts from what they call the Indian Wars. It talks about the movement of children to boarding schools, women and elders to reservations, and men to sort of prisons in Florida. But it's all set amidst the backdrop of Carlisle Indian School and sort of Jim Thorpe and the football team that they had, and how it sort of evolved into what we kind of would classify as the modern football, the way we see it now, because the Native American teams weren't as big. So back then it was Yale, Princeton, Harvard. They were big, burly men, and it was all running. And the Native American teams from Carlisle couldn't play that game. So what they did was they created play action. They created reversals in movement that were integrated into the modern game now. And so there was a lot of innovation that happened because of Carlisle Indian School. But there's a lot of really neat historical facts that are really accurate. And it's a great read. You can also go to nb3foundation.org and learn more about us and all the tribes we serve. And you know, there's a lot of history out there. It's really neat. And I think many people in many cities, when you see streets named in certain languages, it's kind of a derivation of the tribal nations that sort of inhabited those areas quite some time ago.
We're talking with Notah Begay III here on the Augusta Golf Show. Tell me about the culmination, the Skechers, the Notah Begay III Junior Golf Championship.
Oh, we're having so much fun with that. We're so happy to have Skechers on board. They've really have made a strong investment in the next generation of golfers through our platform. We service over 10,000 kids a year with our junior golf initiative, and it was based upon three key important points. You know, the first of which is that it has to be access. Like, there has to be access to more and more kids. So we keep our price points down. So of similar events in our category, we are the lowest priced event for a high quality golf experience. The second is, you know, we provide avenues for kids to get better. We have partnerships with the Junior Golf Hub and their Player Development Index. We have events where these kids can go and get a thorough evaluation of every single major discipline in the game, so that they sort of have a starting point on what they need to work on. And they can also do a comparative analysis, because we conducted these same evaluations on the Stanford team, the Texas team, the University of New Mexico team, both men's and women's side. So we have numbers and testing scores from those programs. So if a kid that scores, it's on a 0 to 100 scale. So if they score through a player development index test, PDI, we call it, and they score a 55, all the kids at these high-level programs are scoring between 75 and 85. So someone that scores a 55 when they're 14 years old is like, okay, I've got about a year and a half to sort of increase my score by 20 points to sort of get in the same skill set category of some of the elite collegians. So, you know, we provide those types of experiences to our players. We try and go to high-quality venues. We've got great partnerships with some of the tribal properties I mentioned. And we really try and make sure that we don't just connect with the player. They're not just a number to us. They're a family. Because any junior golfer that seeks to compete at a high level, the entire family has to make an investment, just like my family invested in me. And so we always do our best to broker good hotel rates. We try and keep costs down, and we just really try and do everything we can to work in conjunction with our families, because we know the road to getting these kids to play college golf is expensive, and it's very difficult.
Before I let you go, a couple of golf play-in questions. It's Augusta. You played in 2 Masters. Tell me about those experiences.
Well, it's the pinnacle of golf. I know there's 4 majors in the Players Championship, but you know, if you ask an American golfer if they had a choice to win any one of those 5 events, I think it'd be 100 out of 100 would say the Masters. I mean, it's the way it's conducted, the history, the list of champions, the golf course, and now in the modern era, how they've really begun to really cater to the golfers. But I think it's just generally the golf course and the tournament itself really lends itself to identifying greatness in our game. If you look at the history of Hall of Famers, if you look at the history of sort of career Grand Slam winners, they're all of them have won the Masters. And I just think that it's the type of tournament that just separates itself a little bit from the other championships. And you layer that on top of the fact that it's the greatest spectator experience in all of sports. You go there, no phones. You want to get a soda, it's $1.25. It's not $10.25. You want to get a beer, it's, you know, everything's just, it's almost like going back in time, and the golf is still the focal point of the entire week, of the entire process. And Augusta does a great job of protecting the integrity of the championship, which is why I think the players appreciate it so much.
How much you want to play? Tell me about your PGA Tour Champions commitment. How much do you want to play? How much are you able to play?
Every day I wake up, I want to play. But every day I wake up and I still have 3 kids at home, and we've got practices, and my life's in a different place. I come to the realization that it's not in the cards right now. But every waking minute that I can get away to the golf course, or I went to putt for 30 minutes this morning because I had a window. I'll go back tonight and try and hit balls or hit wedges, right? Because I've got an event. The Bowling Classic in Seattle has extended me an invitation. So I'm going to play as much as I can until my body just says we're done, because I know it's on the horizon. It's on the horizon for all of us as athletes. But I think we're lucky in golf to have the Champions Tour. And I love going out and supporting events because every single week I play, I usually get a chance to engage with the local nonprofit in the area, whether it's through a clinic, through a speech, through some sort of engagement. I was at the Principal Charity Classic a couple years ago, and I got a chance to host a young man who just had a heart transplant. And he came out and he sort of caddied for me for a few holes. I let him hit a couple shots, and that to me is the most important thing about what we do at this stage of my career, is that we have a voice, a platform, and an opportunity to inspire others, whether we see it or we don't see it. But I try and use that as much as possible, and I try and say yes to as many of these engagements as I possibly can, because it gives me a chance to sort of encourage others that were told they were too slow, too short, or they weigh too much. I want to inspire them to be like, hey man, don't listen to the rhetoric. You make your own fortune. You create your own opportunity, because there was many turns in my life as a Native American where people told me that people like me don't make it to the PGA Tour, and people like me can't win the Payne Stewart Award. And I've done both, so I'm doing okay.
He is Notah Begay III. Yes, the 2026 recipient of the Payne Stewart Award. Well deserved. Notah, thank you for carving out some time for this. I deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.